So I kind of wanted to talk about um, some of the online responses from um, parents, grandparents, people that pay for their students' education. So I will put up the screenshots right here so you guys can read along with me. So I'm looking at Longwood's post, right? And I'm always finding myself looking in the comments because the comments really tell us what people really think. And so someone says, activism, this is what parents are paying for. And these three other people respond and says, without activism, nothing happens. I dare say we all pay for injustice and racism. The history of activism inspired by music, a unique and interesting examination of how music has inspired some. And some other people, continue to talk about how teaching students about these different things is so important. Um, and find that there's some microaggression pieces into this because the second part, aside from that, not everyone who takes that course will eventually wind up taking to the streets. And activism, as Professor Betts kind of talked about, is also internalizing um, conversations and believing that we have an ability to shift our culture towards a more acceptive, inclusive society. But it doesn't necessarily mean that activism shouldn't be something that people are afraid of. And if it is frightening, does that mean it affects you in a negative way? And the answer is no, because activism is supposed to be an inclusive venture, but it is one that comes in many forms. And the original person that, started this kind of discourse says, I get that about all the good things that activism can do, but to what purpose? To incite more activism. And so what our citizen classes are supposed to do are supposed to make us citizen leaders. And if I am to be a citizen leader, then that means I am to be active in activism. And specifically, the intro to US race and ethnic studies class kind of gives us those pieces because Professor Betts talks about how students this semester will have to put together their own social justice event. But not just putting it together, but being mindful of those things and reacting and doing them all the time is what makes you an activist, what makes you someone that's willing to have these conversations and integrate yourself into a more inclusive world. And so I know that Longwood doesn't necessarily nurture our racial identities, but there are professors in, especially with this minor specifically, the US Race and Ethnic Studies minor, they're trying to give students the tools to make and implement a better society here, specifically on campus, and then take it outside of our enclosed surrounding. And I think that's really special that we have professors that are very dedicated to that. And I wanted to make sure that I mentioned Dr. Spencer Tricker because Dr. Spencer Tricker is one of the co-directors of the U.S. Race and Ethnic Studies minor, along with Professor Shayla Betts. So I have a statement from him that I'll put into the next clip. And I just wanted to thank all three of my professors for being involved in this. But
As I see it, the Race and Ethnic Studies minor at Longwood University has two primary justifications. At the local level, this is a program that traces its origins to student initiatives. It was Longwood students, not faculty, who first asked the administration to make the issues of racial justice a more intentional part of the university's curriculum. At the national level, the program responds not only to inequities caused by ongoing practices of racism, but also to the changing dynamic of the U.S. population. The 2020 census has shown that the United States is more diverse than it has ever been. With Longwood University remains a primarily white institution, its graduates will increasingly need to navigate a nation in which their friends, relatives, neighbors, and coworkers will be people with different racial and ethnic backgrounds to their own. They need a curriculum that prepares them to be astute and caring contributors within this fast unfolding reality. Perhaps more than ever before then, Longwood's emphasis on citizen leadership must entail a deep, longitudinal engagement with issues of structural racism, rather than a here and there approach that fails to grasp the complex totality of historical issues that divide us. With the RAES minor, faculty from different fields of study around the university collaborate to grant students the opportunity to conduct sustained, multifaceted inquiry into social inequities with the aim of producing better outcomes for society as a whole. The program's goal is to build a meaningful community without ignoring our many differences. More specifically, it aims to foster a durable commitment to solidarity among people of varying backgrounds that starts by coming to terms with painful aspects of the nation's past and present, and then works towards a more just future for everyone. Dr. Spencer Tricker.
Involved in this, but I think that if anything, we're talking about coursework that is supposed to give us the tools to be, you know, fully functioning, respectful adults. But, you know, those aren't the only classrooms that we will be a part of. Those aren't the only studies that, we will come into contact with. So, students of color have a different type of experience with their academic life or academic social life, I really say, because you can't really separate the two. So I think that these are the groundwork for people around us, but I want to kind of give a heads up for next video about specific tools, tips, and conversations and scenarios about ways to get through these uncomfortable scenarios where I might be the only black woman in class. I might be the only black man in class. I might be the only mixed race person in class, whether that be mixed with black, white, Asian, white, Hispanic, white, or having multiple ethnic backgrounds or identities. So in the next video, we'll be kind of shifting from coursework to being actually inside of the classroom and doing those scholarly practices and tips, but also kind of working on the academic social of navigating, well, I'm the only person in class that is relatively melanated. So how do I come to terms with that? And also, I kind of want to discuss grit and what grit means to students of color. Because have we always had grit, and is this just a new concept for our white counterparts? Or is it something that we have internalized so much that it could be detrimental to us? So that's really all I have for this episode. I hope you enjoy. Please leave a comment in the comment section and let me know what I could do better. But I really hope that students are able to pick and find classes that they can talk about themselves, learn about themselves, but also learn about others to move towards a better Longwood. But this has been Key's PWI Survival Guide. I'll see y'all later.